Hey guys, Bolt here. We're here for the quickest entertainment I can give you. We're here to do some. Oh, you can't even see it. I'm on Dokkan info, which has JP info on it. But anyways, basically, there was a person who has been making Dokkan history videos. In 1 second, let me go look them up for you. Alright, here he is, the legendary Plowith. He's been doing smaller videos. He goes over almost every unit, and he also goes over a lot of like events that happen through the game. But I'm only here to go over the very first like color of a rarity, typing, leader skills. Basically, I tried to get as much of like the very first like mention in a super attack or a passive, but after I think it was like year 4 or 5, it kind of started doing what we have now. So after like year 4, I didn't really care too much to keep up with the rest of it. So anyways, let's get into this. So this AGL Goku is the very first Super Saiyan Goku in the very first SSR AGL. He's also the very first leader for AGL Intelligence and Physical for Attack. He also has extreme damage on Super Attack. He also has a key. His passive is you get key with his when his HP is a certain amount. This Tech Vegeta is the very first Tech SSR and the very first Super Saiyan Vegeta. He's also the leader for Tech and STR on attack, so all typings were given a leader that had attack on it. And then he also did, instead of the key when HP, he had attack when HP. This is the first ever STR SR, and it's the very first base form Goku. He's also the leader of key to Tech and STR. He had huge damage on super attack, and his passive was attack when you super attacked. So you would start getting it. You'd get some attack on when you did extra damage. Anyways, this was the first ever Tech SR, very first base form Vegeta. He was a leader of attack whenever HP was a certain condition. He also had attack when no. So never mind. This I doubled up. This is what was bad about the research. His leader skill was just attack when HP. This was the very first forced form Frieza. His leader skill was attack for all types. So he's the best probably out of all of them. And then his passive starts with attack, lowers it attack with super attack. So he's a debuff, and I think so he gets attack, and he also had a debuff when he had super attacked. Let's see here. Wait. Okay, that's weird. I don't know why they gave me an option to go to the 44th. Alright, so here's the next Frieza. The only thing that's new about him was he had a chance of lowering enemy attack and starts with defense for his passive. This is the very first AGL SR and the very first form Cell. His passive was he gained attack with basically he would boost his attack for the final blow, or he would get attack for the final blow. It's weird how we mention it. This is the very first Tech SR, right? I know. Why did I write that then? That's dumb. We already had let's see. It was STR Goku, Tech Vegeta, AGL Cell. Okay. So we're needing a Fizz and an Intelligence, which are these two. I don't know why I said first on that. This one, his key is to recover damage dealt to HP. So when he gets key, you would recover HP that was dealt to him particularly. Let's see here. This is the very first Kid Gohan. His super attack was a rare chance to stun. Actually, that's it. So we're starting to get on the faster track. The very first Teen Trunks, his passive was he would gain attack when final blow for the next turn only. So instead of this one where you just keep the attack, this one you can only get it for a turn. So this is the better of the two. This is the very first Krillin. He led attack 1 HP. I think that one was supposed to be erased, but then he had a super attack for lowering defense, and he would give his passive was defense to allies when HP was a certain number. The very first Piccolo, he had 1 key. He had a passive of AGL and physical would get key +1. The very first Tien, he gets a rare chance to seal super attack. The very first Intelligence SR and the very first Chotsu, his passive was to stun. He has a chance or a May chance to stun all enemies. This is the very first Yamcha. His leader skill was a 25% lower defense to enemies. His passive was to lower 50% defense as a first attacker. Next, the very first Raditz, who was... sorry, let me get a drink real quick. He gets 25% attack to allies when HP. That was his passive. So... Alright. Oh, sticking. Alright, so we're on Nappa. The very first Nappa of the game, his passive was 50% attack when there's 3 enemies. The very first Zarbon, he had a chance of 25% attack, so his passive didn't even give you a guaranteed attack stat, he was only a chance. The very first Captain Ginyu, he led at 25% extra health. He had a rare chance at 50% attack or defense. Oof. These early units, I couldn't run these guys. The very first physical SR and the very first Android 19. So this is the last of the first for the SRs when it comes to the typings. Nothing new with him. This is the very first Android 20. His leader skill was tech enemies would get 25% lower health. Attack. The very first Android 17. He would lower AGL attack. Passive was a chance to make enemies defense 0. So that's actually pretty nice, and they should probably bring this back for nowadays, because that would be an amazing thing for damage dealers. First ever Android 18, the very first Android 16, the very first Master Roshi, he would give STRs extra key, and his passive was allies get key when he would get extra key when HP. The very first Mercenary Tao, he'd give AGL and key. He gives key to AGL, and then his passive was rare chance to stun all enemies. We're starting to get into rares. These are the very first rare, the very first intelligent rare, Kid Gohan. The very first AGL rare. This one has a passive of key and attack for first as a first attacker. The very first physical rare. Defense with one enemy. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Someone was just texted me right off the thing. So the first ever physical rare, and this Krillin. Sorry, walking away made me have to. Okay. Anyways, yeah, defense with when there was one enemy. That's all he really did. The very first. Oh no. Okay, this guy only introduced a chance to recover HP. The very first, we'd skip this one, so we're starting to skip people. So once we start introducing a lot of the passives and stuff, we can skip a lot of characters. So these 40-something pages can be ran through very quickly. This was the very first tech rare. He had a rare chance to reduce enemies' attack. We'd skip him, go to Raditz. He had a passive that was... he had damage reduction when guard. So, I don't know what that really meant. But, we'd skip to the Zarbon. His attack when key would go up. So he'd get attack when there's a key amount. You'd get the very first STR rare, Captain Ginyu here. His attack would go up for allies when there's 3 attacks in a row. He had the damage reduction for his leader skill. Then you skip him, go to 17. He would disable enemy guard. Android 16 was the very first person to be immune to effects. Let me double check here. So we got AGL, STR, Fizz, Int, Tech. Oh. So this was the first ever. So first ever Int, first ever AGL, first ever Fizz, first ever Tech, and first ever STR. After 16, Mercenary Tau. He would lead with key to intelligence. The very first fusion machine peel off. That's all it would do. First ever Shin, which is basically just Kami in disguise, but that's the very first version of him. First ever Tambourine. First ever Cyball. First ever Drum. The first ever Chi-Chi. First ever Dodoria. The first ever Raccoon. First Goldo. First Burger. First Jace. The first Yamcharobi. The first Nail. The first Mr. Satan. And the first Videl. See, these guys have passives that have been introduced, so it's good to just run through these guys very quickly. The first ever Cell Jr., first ever Spokovich, first ever Yamu, first ever Yakon. Now we're going into the normals. So the very first intelligent normal, the first ever SCR normal, first ever Fizz normal, first ever AGL normal, the very first Apol, or Apul. No, we haven't introduced a Pui. What do you mean? We haven't introduced Pui. Why is he? Did we? Yeah, we haven't introduced Pui. Why is he skipped on my list? Mr. Satan, Videl, Cell Jr. Oh, Yakon. So that was the first Yakon. I don't know why I didn't say that. He's yeah, we skipped to him. So this would be the first ever Pui Pui. The first ever pool, the first ever Q. Um, first ever AGLR. So we're just missing Tech, which would have been him. So the first ever Bobity's Minion, the first ever Pintar, Jewel, the last of the typings. So first ever Int, first ever STR, first ever Physical, first ever AGL, and the first ever Tech. But this would be the first ever Jewel, first ever Killa, the first ever Pirate Robot, the first ever Cyberman, first ever Frieza Soldier, Red Ribbon Soldier, and we got to skip a little bit and go to this. This is the very first SSR. The very first physical SSR. We got to. We're skipping we're skipping like one or two now. So, like by like the 20s, we're gonna skip like large amounts of them. Next would be the intelligence. Captain Ginyu. He may seal enemy super attack when his key hit us, when you collected a certain amount of key. This physical Nappa had a greatly lowers defense. This Dodoria, this Dodoria had key. You'd gain key when there was 2 or more enemies. This Gulda, you'd lower defense to 0 when attack. Anyways, well, here I'll look at it since I wrote this down badly. Briefly, you'd briefly do it. Let's see here. So I can throw this out after this one. The Berter was all types and key for his passive. So, wait, no, that's his leader skill. Right? Yeah, all types get 1 key. This Nail was his leader skill would make all the characters immune to effects. Skipping to the next one, so we're on the last 40 page, and it's starting to slow down. Oh no! I hate this page for this exact reason. They're only displaying information, and they can't freaking go. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry about that. We were able to get moving again. So, we would jump to this physical TN with a chance for damage reduction. We would jump to... Oh, wow. Oh, we're jumping a lot of characters here. Master Shin, the very first version of him, but he has his passive was lower enemy attack. This was the very first, and this would be the last of the typings for the SSRs. So those 2 Super Saiyan Gokus and Super Saiyan Vegetas and the Super Saiyan Gohan finished the typings for SSRs, but this is the very first Super Saiyan Gohan Youth. This was the very first Kaioken Goku. His super attack greatly raises attack. Then we would skip to this Super Saiyan 2 Goku as the first Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and he had a supreme damage on his super attack. This was the very first Super Saiyan Bardock, the very first Fasha, very first Bardock, the very first second form Frieza, first Tora, first Borgos, first ever Sages. This was the very first final form Frieza. This was the very first Super Saiyan Teen Trunks. The very first third form Frieza. This one actually had key to Tech and STR. This Piccolo had a passive to all allies would get defense. This Guldo, he would give defense to physical. This was the very first Perfect Cell. The very first Super Saiyan 2 Gohan Youth. The very first second form Cell. Oh, we're already in the 30s. This was the very first Kid Trunks. This was the very first second Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta. The very first Super Trunks. The very first Teen Gohan. The very first Super Saiyan 3 Goku. First Majin Vegeta. First Good Buu. First Evil Buu. First Super Buu. First Kid Buu. And first Deborah. Alright. This was the very first Kid Goten, first Ultimate Gohan, first Youth Oob, first Kid Pan, the very first Blue Goku, first Blue Vegeta, first Golden Frieza, the very first Sorbet, Tegoma, I think is Officer Krillin. You can't get him anymore, but that was a very, very different name. The very first Super Saiyan Teen Gohan, which is not correct because this is adult Gohan from Resurrection of F, but because of his tracksuit, they made him called Teen Gohan. So sadly, we didn't get a new name for these two characters. The very first Jocko, first ever Max Power Master Roshi. This was the first ever Kid Goku, which is now Youth Goku because he's in his not pre-teens, his early teens. The very first Demon King Elder Piccolo. The very first Demon King Piccolo, Piccolo Jr., Marusikai, Marusaki, I think that's how it is. First ever General Blue, first ever Youth Chi-Chi, first ever Youth Krillin, first ever Devil Man, first ever Bandages, first ever Dracula Man, the very first ever Vegito, first ever Gotenks. This Goku right here would give you HP whenever you collected candy. So there's a Good Boo event that turns key spears into candy. He's good for that. The very first Cooler, the very first Final Form Cooler, the very first Salza, Dora, and Nazi, or Naz. The very first 13, first ever Fusion 13. This is the very first Bojack because of his SR, and his very first full power Bojack because of his SSR. The very first Super Saiyan Kid Trunks, first ever Super Saiyan Kid Goten. The very first Sashimi. The very first Beerus, very first Whis, very first Youth Gohan, because we've only had the Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 variant, so this is new. let's see here. The very first Angel Goku right here. The very first Great Saiyaman, first ever Great Saiyaman 2. Very first GT Goku, first Pan GT, first Super Saiyan Trunks GT, first. Oh wait, no, the Super Saiyan Trunks also had a lead skill for HP. Hold on, this doesn't make sense. You would recover HP per key on the type. So, get type spears to get HP, basically. You'd gain extra. First ever Vegeta GT. First ever Super Saiyan Goku GT. First ever Mr. Satan GT. First ever Super Saiyan Gohan GT. The first ever King Champa. First ever Oolong. First ever... Wait, no. So this Super Trunks, his passive weakens regen. Then we would go to this Kaioken Goku. He would change STR to Rainbow Spears. The very first physical... Well, no. He didn't get introduced for a while. Never mind. I'm sorry about that. This website is not fully in order. I learned this after going to Dokkan cards, but this was the very first. Well, this Whis had AGL. I'm sorry, what? Oh, you'd give AGL defense. That's what he did. First ever Kibito, first ever Supreme Kai, first ever Majin Buu Piccolo, first ever Metal Cooler. His leader skill would give key to all types. First ever Sidopian Guard, and he'd give defense on his passive. The first ever Turles, first ever God Goku, because this guy, you wouldn't be able to Dokkan awaken him into this God Goku for a while, so this would be the first ever God Goku. That's what I did wrong there. This Tech Friend Summon Hercule, even though at the time he wasn't, he's still very first introduced card that would become the very first Tech LR. So that's cool. And then this Android 18 could change Rainbow to Ink. This could turn Rainbow AGL to Rainbow. This is the very first legendary Super Saiyan Brawly. The very first Bulma. The very first Kadu. First ever Diaz. First ever Amand. First ever Raisin. First ever Lokusa. First ever Youth Bulma. The very first ever Super Oob, which is Majub. Global needs to fix that. We know him as Majub. This Goku would give Tech Allies attack and ki. This physical Vegeta would give physical allies attack and ki. This AGL Frieza would give AGL allies attack and ki. First ever Bulma Bunny. First ever launch. His lead skill would give you HP, attack, and defense on Tech. So this was the very first modern-looking unit because we have all those stats in one leader skill. Then we would go to the next. Okay, so these three were introduced for the legendary Super Saiyan Brawly. You'd need these guys to go into that event, and these three had the ability of their passive to disable Rampage. This Super Vegeta was the very first one of his kind. This was a lead skill to AG. So this is a modern unit for AGL for the stat boost of HP, attack, and defense for his lead skill. First ever. This guy his passive was Rainbow to AGL. That's what he did. Gairen, Staff Officer Black. Fail A and B Go Tanks. Teen Oob. Kid Vegeta. Cyborg Tao. Grandpa Gohan. King Vegeta. Pycon. Xeno Trunks. Shield. King Cold. Mighty Mask, Jackie Chung, Mecha Frieza, Brawly, who would go into the Super Saiyan Brawly, very first of their kind. So I was introducing this character, and while it looks weird, this guy is actually... when he awakened, he became the very first... you can have grabbed this guy, and he wouldn't have turned this into a while, but the very first Angel Super Saiyan Goku and the first ever Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku. That's what he is, so... Zengenya... Gokua, Bido, and Bujin, Paragus, Super Saiyan 2 Teen Gohan, let's see, it would be him. I included this guy in the list because even though he's just known as Super Saiyan Goku, he is our official Super Goku because he's bulky, but we will probably never get an actual unit of that, even though I am sad. And then I'll probably finish this list and make the next video so I can make this into a two-parter. This 13, he would change Tech into Rainbow. I never know how to say this correctly. Hachiyak, Dr. Luki, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta, Kabito Kai, Veku, Super Janemba, who had Guard, this Super Gogeta, who was effective against all types, and then a Super Saiyan Vegeta GT, Kami, and that's it. So these were the first year anniversary characters, and this was the first year anniversary card that would go into the second anniversary card. So there we go. We got through the first year of Dokkan in this video. They introduced a lot of lead skills, a lot of passives, a lot of you went through all the typings of rares, normals, SRs, techs, and you were introduced the first ever card that would eventually get into an LR, even though he wouldn't be the very first LR. But he was still the very first one that got into the game. And then we went through a lot of things. So after that one, we kind of run through the history, I believe. Because we got... So why did it take me only to go start going through the first ever characters of their types. Next video, I'll just say, hey, we're going through mostly the first ever characters. May say something if it introduced a new mechanic. But that's what this was. This first part was basically, hey, here are the first ever introductions into the game. They weren't meant to be like, hey, this is what this means. This is what this means. Because what I like about the videos of that channel I showed you in the beginning is he went into detail about every single unit. But the issue about that is a lot of these characters coming in later in the game, it didn't matter. So I wanted to go back and be like, hey, this unit introduced this. And if you get it in the future and think it's an amazing skill, that character was the one who introduced it. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. We'll be starting next part on the 34th page. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.